Hello YouTube, it's Mr. Magz here, and there was a Nintendo Direct that dropped yesterday, but I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the Direct itself. Just to keep it short, I felt it was a pretty solid Direct. There was nothing mind-blowing, but there was nothing disappointing. There was nothing insulting like at a Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival or Metroid Prime Federation Force or something dumb like that. Everything I felt that was announced could be in the good to have category. Um, I can understand, people getting excited for everything on here. I personally wasn't, super excited for everything on the list, but I could definitely see people out there getting excited for most of the stuff. And there were a few games I know for sure I'm gonna buy. A couple I might, look into down the line, and others, I'm happy that those games are on the system. Like I said, they're nice to have. But I'm not going to be talking much about the Direct itself. Instead, I'm going to be focusing more on the types of reactions we get to the Direct. Invariably, there are roughly 7 categories of people who react to Directs. And I'm going to go over them now. So, the first type that I feel is the loudest overall are what I consider the overhypers. They're the ones that go into every single Direct assuming it's just another E3, assuming that we're going to get Smash, Mario Kart, Pokemon, a new Metroid game, Star Fox, F-Zero, Animal Crossing, Fire Emblem, just every possible game Nintendo could possibly announce needs to be announced in this Direct, otherwise it's a bust. And that happens literally every single time a Direct happens. It happened last September when they announced all the great stuff, but because it didn't have everything they wanted, it was a bad Direct. It happened to E3, but because it didn't have everything they wanted, it was a bad E3, which is really strange because for most of these Directs, it has a lot of the stuff they do want, but since it didn't have everything, they call it a disappointing Direct. And look, I get it. These Directs happen, 3 or so months in between each other. And that's a lot of time to get your hype built up. But you can't go into every single Direct assuming it's going to be the greatest thing ever. There has been one, maybe two, Directs that weren't in E3 that were spectacular. There was that one at the beginning of there was one at the beginning of the Wii U's lifetime. I think it was in January. That had a lot of amazing games. However, most of them didn't actually come out until 3 years later. And there was maybe one more I can't really think of right now, but yeah, even people like this, the people who are the overhypers, were even upset at the January event last year when they fully unveiled the Switch because it didn't have everything they want. Even though they announced a new Mario, re-released Mario Kart, had that amazing new Zelda trailer, Splatoon 2, Xenoblade 2, ARMS, Fire Emblem Warriors, just all these great games were announced there. Yet these same people were saying they were disappointed by it because it didn't have everything, which is never a good mindset to have going into any event like this. They can never have everything you want ready on time. Everything you want will probably be announced at some point, but they will not be all announced at the same time. That would just be ridiculous. If they did announce everything all at the same time, what are they going to have to announce later? That just seems like really flawed logic in my opinion. So next up is the categories I like to call the negative Ninties. Kind of like negative Nancy's, but Nintendo's. They're the ones who live to be contrarians. They go into every single Direct assuming it's going to be terrible, and because they assume that, they perceive it as bad. They look for every opportunity to complain about stuff. They for some reason thrive on people on negativity and just assume that everyone will feel the same as them and get mad at people for actually liking stuff, which is really just messed up in my opinion. Why would you actively want something to be disappointing? Why would you actively be antagonistic against people who likes things that you don't? I know that's basically just internet culture nowadays, but especially it just kind of seems like, at least in the Nintendo fan base, Nintendo Directs, you you can't like something and have you you can't like something without people being mad at you for liking that thing, which is just really really confusing. And I don't understand why people would want to go into any special event like this not at least hoping for decency. They're hoping that it would be bad, which is really confusing. And look, I get it. Like, guilty pleasures are one thing, but for but these people, a there's a group of people who actively want things to just be bad, and it's real. I'll never understand it. Like, whatever. And they're they're not the loudest group, but they negativity kind of breeds other negativity. And if even if you felt this direct was decent, like I do, I felt it was, pretty good. I felt it was solid. It wasn't amazing, but it was solid. If you're on the fence about it, and then you hear one person say they liked it, but then 10 other people say they didn't like it, even when these negative ninties, they never really give any good examples as to why they don't like it. They just say they don't like it, and that's that, which is never a good argument to have. The people who are on the fence might hear all these loud individuals who don't like it and then side with them, having this mind share of, oh, this direct wasn't actually good, which is insane to me. Kind of connected to the negative ninties are the goalpost movers. Now these people are the ones who I wouldn't call them Nintendo fans by any stretch of the imagination. They're the ones who actively want the Switch to fail. They're the ones who love their other consoles and for some reason see Nintendo fans as predators, and they want Sony or Microsoft or whatever their platform is to be the only one, and they say it under the guise of they want Nintendo to be better. I used to be a Nintendo fan, but I can't anymore because they've screwed up so many times. And like, no, that's not. You're just wrong. But whatever. These goalpost movers, they go into every direct, and once when the direct wasn't, when the January event last year, the one when they revealed the Switch, they were like, oh, there's not enough games for it, even though there were plenty of games coming, and I get it, there weren't that many games at launch. And then there were actually quite a few games at launch, but most of them were indie games. So they were like, oh, there's too many indie games, which is never, ever, ever a problem, by the way. That's having too many indie games is how is that an issue? Unless the indie games are bad, which 95% of the indie games on the Switch aren't bad. But then, more first party games started coming out, and by July, with Splatoon 2, Arms, Zelda, Mario Kart, all these games were out. They started complaining about third party games, and then all these other third party games started coming out in November last year, especially. Just game after game, week after week, third party games just kept coming to the system. But then they started complaining that there are too many ports to the system. And I'm like, you just can't win with these guys. They they first complained about too many last gen ports with Skyrim, but then Doom comes out, and then they complain that it's just an old port. Like, okay, but then they announce Wolfenstein 2. Oh, it's coming a year later. What? But you're still getting a current gen port. It just wasn't ready at the time. So yeah, they just keep moving the goalpost, and now these people are complaining, oh, there are too many third party games coming out. There's not enough first party stuff, which is just insane to me personally. But they're complaining because this direct had a lot of Wii U ports, and I personally consider them first party games, like they are, especially since a lot of people who now own a Switch didn't own a Wii U, because the Switch, if it hasn't already surpassed the Wii U, it's almost there. It's like 13 plus million at this point. So a lot of the people who have a Switch right now didn't have a Wii U. So Donkey Kong, Hyrule Warriors, and Bayonetta 1 and 2, these games are brand new to these new Switch owners. Oh, but because they're ports, these goalpost movers are now complaining that there are too many ports. Even though you were just complaining that there's not enough first party games, you're now deeming these ports as not first party, which is just crazy. Uh, and the craziest part is a lot of these people didn't own a Wii U either. They're moving these goalposts saying that like they're complaining about too many ports. Yet these people never even played half these games. I know for a fact a lot of these people didn't play Tropical Freeze or didn't play Hyrule Warriors, and now they're complaining that these games are actually on the Switch. I'll never ever understand how that logic makes sense. Like the Wii U wasn't relevant for 4 years, and now all of a sudden, now that the Switch is getting a bunch of Wii U ports, it's suddenly relevant again. It's suddenly, oh, I already played these games in the Wii U. No, you didn't. Shut up. But whatever. Next, we have the Smashers. The ones who go into every single direct assuming that Smash Bros. Will be there, and when Smash isn't announced, it's terrible. I honestly feel that these guys are worse than the overhypers. Because, at least with the overhypers, they overhype a lot of titles. They want a lot of different games. Smash is usually included in that, but they want a lot of different games to be announced. And more often than not, not every one of those games is announced, but one or two might be. But with Smash, the Smashers go into every direct just wanting this one single game, whether it be a Smash Wii U port or a brand new Smash game. And when that Smash game isn't announced, they complain that the direct sucked. Like, you really don't care about any other Nintendo franchise, even though you're clamoring for this game where you're pitting the greatest Nintendo franchises against each other. So that didn't bleed over at all, like most Smash players do. I'm pretty confident that a lot of me included, a lot of Smash players who got into Nintendo by playing Smash started playing other games because they started recognizing these characters in Smash. Yet you're complaining that Smash not being at the direct meant that all the other games announced don't matter, which is just insane. Like these people who complained that Nintendo's E3 2017 sucked because it didn't have Smash. What? They announced a whole slew of amazing games. None of that matters. I don't understand that at all. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, we have the cult followers. The ones who go into every direct and regardless of what they show, just praise Nintendo for everything. People even praise Nintendo for that awful direct that showcased her Chibi-Robo Ziplash, Animal Crossing and Amiibo Festival, and Metroid Prime Federation Force. Those games didn't really appeal to anybody. No one liked the idea that I don't know why I keep trying to say Kirby, that Chibi-Robo was being transitioned from an open world adventure game into a 2D platformer. No one liked that. No one liked the fact that Animal Crossing was being turned into a board game when there wasn't even an Animal Crossing proper on the Wii U. Very, very few people actually liked Metroid Prime Federation Force, especially since there hadn't been a Metroid Prime game proper on the Wii U or in the past 10 years. Yet these people, these Nintendo cultists who praise everything Nintendo does, said that, oh, it's not that bad. There were other games announced, even though there really weren't many other games announced that year, that E3. There was Tokyo Mirage Sessions? I think that might have been really the only other big game announced in that time frame. Yeah, I really can't think of much else they announced that year. Oh, they announced Mario Tennis Ultra Trash. Forgot about that one, which is another terrible game they announced in 2015. But yet these Nintendo cultists just took that and just made the and there's a difference between being optimistic and being cult like. These people just went beyond optimism and just started praising Nintendo for everything, regardless of everything they showed being subpar at best. And look, I can understand you wanting Nintendo, I can understand you wanting the best from Nintendo, but when Nintendo doesn't give you their best, you shouldn't praise them for it. Now, this direct they showed recently, there were definitely some Nintendo, like these Nintendo cultists, who were saying that the games that were shown were the greatest things ever. Like it's the greatest thing ever that we're getting in Tropical Freeze port and Hyrule Warriors port and all these other games is the greatest thing ever. Which, like I said, it's not mind blowing, but it's not bad. It's just nice to have. It's not amazing that we're getting all these ports. Like myself and most people would appreciate more if we actually got brand new games from these franchises. But the fact that we are getting these ports is just nice to have, like I keep saying. So yeah, it's not the greatest thing ever. And yeah, these Nintendo cultists are going around acting like it is when it's just not. Now, the next group is what I like to call the Optimists, the ones that I personally consider myself to be in this category. The ones that go into a direct hoping for the best. They want certain games announced, but they don't like expect these games to actually be there, and they just go in, with high hopes. Yeah, they have their expectations, moderately high, but not high enough that if everything they want isn't announced, they won't be disappointed by it. They'll still feel like it's a decent direct. Like going in, I personally really wanted a new Kid Icarus game. That wasn't shown, but whatever. I wasn't really expecting it to. I was just, it would be nice. It would be really exciting if we did get that. Since we didn't, I'm not disappointed by it. And I personally wish that a lot of people who were Nintendo fans had this mindset. Um, I yeah, for some reason the majority of them are in the groups before this, especially the overhypers, which it seems the majority of people who watch the Nintendo Directs are in that category. Yeah, I wish more people were in the Optimist category. It's nice to speculate about things. It's basically what you do when you have a fan base. When a fan base is such massive as the Nintendo fan base is, it's cool to talk to people about things you want to see in the upcoming events. But when you have your expectations set so high that Nintendo couldn't possibly reach that, that's where you fall flat, in my opinion. So it's nice to be an optimist, but it's nice to reel it back at least a little bit. And that transitions straight into my last category, the realists, the ones who go into a direct and just you know they don't really expect much of anything. They just want new announcements. These are the ones who, even though they've been hyping up this direct for the past 3 or 4 months, they go into a direct, see that it's called a Nintendo Direct Mini, and set expectations accordingly. They might want certain games announced, but they're honestly not expecting them. They're at this point, a lot of these people were expecting a lot of Wii U ports because a lot of people on Wii U, a lot of people didn't have a Wii U, so a lot of people didn't play these games. So they go into a direct with an open mind. Essentially, whatever's announced is nice. Yet they're not going to be like the Nintendo cult followers who are like, "Oh, we're going to go in and just praise everything Nintendo announces." No, no, they're not going to do that at all. They're going to go in with an open mind and try to see the best in everything. But if something clearly is bad, they're not going to be afraid to call out Nintendo on it. So yeah, that's just kind of a basic observation of how I personally see the internet after every single direct. Um, what do you guys feel about my analysis of the different types of Nintendo Direct watchers? Are there any that I missed? Are there any types of Nintendo fans that watch Directs that I didn't really cover here? I like to, hear thoughts and whatnot down below. I'd like to have a discussion going, and I'll see you next time.